So we're here with UFC's Jack Shaw. Jack, how are you doing?
Yeah, good mate. All good. Enjoying the nice weather in Wales. We don't get it often, so can't complain.
Definitely. So in this time of the COVID-19 pandemic, how are you coping at the moment, and how's training going?
It's obviously a little bit different, to what I'm used to. Even out of fight camp, I'm in the gym sort of 5, 6 days a week, 2 or 3 times a day. So, with the COVID and everything, obviously the gym's closed, so that's obviously limited the training schedule to an
Sure.
extent. I'm still trying to get 2 sessions in a day, whether that be sort of running, cycling, kettlebell work, skipping in the back garden. Obviously, I live with my old man as well, who coaches me, so
Yeah.
we manage to do a little bit of pads and stuff like that. But it's obviously a lot less of a workload than what I'm used to. But it is what it is. I suppose it's in everything is in place here for a reason. So hopefully we can get through the next few weeks a little bit quicker and get everything back up and running and back to normal.
Definitely, definitely. So obviously last year, congratulations on signing with the UFC because
Thank
that
you.
was amazing for you. How did you feel when you finally put pen to paper there? And did it kind of make you realise now that there's a new level to the game?
Yeah, it was obviously something I've worked towards since being sort of 11, 12 years of age. Always dreamed of fighting in the UFC, watched it since even younger than that. So to obviously have the contract come through and get the call and then officially sign was a dream come true, I suppose. Something I'll never forget, and something obviously where I've worked towards it for so long. It was like a elated feeling then, in the sense of I've done it, but obviously no one just wants to sign for UFC and that be the pinnacle, the highlight of their career. Everyone wants to go on and do bigger and better things. So the buzz of that soon wore off, and it was more into like, right, let's start. Let's see how good I can be, and let's look at climbing these rankings. Obviously, it's a step up, the UFC to any sort of any other promotion on the planet, in my opinion. The UFC, it's like
Yeah.
going from Cage Warriors UFC, I suppose, if it's like going from the Championship to the Premier League. Then there might not be a massive level jump in, when you're at the top end of Cage Warriors to the bottom end of UFC, but there's definitely the potential there to go on to fight elite level guys. So we was aware of it as a team and as a fighter, and it was just a privilege to be on the roster with obviously the top 1% of the guys in the world.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's always, as you said, it's a fighter's dream, but then it's not just about putting pen to paper there. It's about then reaching that top of the UFC. So I noticed as well at I think it was the Unplugged 2 event where Jack Cartwright went to win the belt. I think you were there, weren't you, doing a lot of their promotion for it? So do you still keep in good contact with Cage Warriors?
Yeah, so I'm managed by Graham Boylan, who obviously is the CEO or the owner or whatever of Cage
Yeah.
Warriors. So Graham's my manager. He's managed me for a while now. So, but where I had that many fights with Cage Warriors, I was with him for sort of, God, I think it was three years or so, just under 3 years. They're quite a close knit family in a sense. You recognize it's the same guys working on every show, the same guys doing the running, the same guys rapping hands, uh, the same girls working on the desk. So you sort of get quite tight knit with them, and then obviously despite moving on then from Cage Warriors, I'm obviously got that contact, and I still feel at home there when I go to the shows, and they look after me even though I'm not one of their fighters anymore.
Yeah, well, they are like a little family down there, aren't they? I think what a lot of people don't realise is Cage Warriors is a team that's run by about, I think there's about 7 in their office, and then when
Yeah,
there's
it's not a lot. It's not a lot of people there, so it's not full time even. There's not a lot of people
yeah,
working there full time. So, like I said, there's obviously you get to know the guys at the shows. Between all the promo and stuff like that, I've done as well. Obviously, I've spent a lot of time, a lot of days with these guys. Obviously, outside of waiting day and fight day as well. So I've got to know them quite well. So they're a cracking bunch, and they're a really nice bunch. So they look after me when I do go to the shows now. Sort me out some nice seats and
that's
sort
good.
me out some backstage passes.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. They're a great bunch of people. So obviously, let's talk about UFC London. You were due to fight on that card. When you found out it was cancelled, how did you feel?
Obviously, like, very disappointed. But if I'm honest, I sort of had my head around it, because I think we got officially told on the Sunday that the fight was off, but sort of it was all up in the air. I knew no word from the UFC, but obviously everything I've seen on the news, and Ireland going into lockdown and the Premier League cancelling their season and stuff like that, I sort of had an idea from the Wednesday that it might go a bit tits up.
Yeah,
So as obviously gutted, like, 12, it was, it was a week out from the fight. So, all the hard work had been done. It was just a matter of winding down and making weight. So gutted not to not get the fight. A lot of my friends and family, obviously, and fans have bought tickets and booked hotels and stuff like that to come watch me, meaning as London is probably as local as it's going to get, for a UFC show for us Welsh guys at the minute. So I was gutted for myself and everything, and that all the hard work, I wouldn't get to show it, but I was gutted for them as well, that it's not a cheap hobby for me around fighting, especially in the UFC. So to see that they had spent obviously a lot of hard earned, I don't mean, I know they get discounts on refunds, on tickets and stuff, but there was a lot of money lost, I think, amongst the people who had booked to go in advance. So it was disappointing for them as well.
Yeah. So me and Chris Cyber were speaking last week, and she was saying that it was actually about UFC 249. She was saying that she felt that Tony Ferguson should have found out before the media found out. Can you shed any light on how the UFC handled the cancellation of UFC London? And because I know Leon Edwards had a few issues with how he felt it was handled, but then that seems to be cleared up now. But from a fighter who was on that card, how did you feel it was approached?
Yeah, I mean, look, it was one of the. It's not like a pull out or anything like that. You know what I mean? It's a situation that they've had to deal with that they've never had to deal with before. They've never had to cancel a show for a mass pandemic or whatever. So I suppose it's new to them. If I'm honest, like, I can't really complain about how I handled it. I knew obviously I was told on the Sunday that look the show is off then. There was talk of potentially going to America to fight. There was talk of having, they were looking to put some fights on the Cage Warriors card. But they didn't mess me about. And I knew I was told that Sunday morning. I trained Sunday morning just in case, got a sweat on. By Sunday night, they sort of clarified with Graham that, nothing was going to happen. It was too late for me to get a visa to get to America I know it didn't happen in the end, the show in America, but they were looking to put something on, I think, at the Apex. So it was too late for me to get a visa in time for that with the turnaround. I think I would have had to get a visa and boarded a flight within like 18 hours of knowing that I had to go to America. So, and then obviously the Cage Warrior scenario, my opponent wasn't in the UK, so he would have had issues getting over anyway. So that fight wasn't doable. But they're pretty straight to the point. They let me know. As soon as I asked, look, is this happening or not? They let me know. So, and obviously they've done a lot for us. Who was due to fight on the card in the last couple of weeks as far as compensation and stuff like that goes. So, credit to them on that. They've stuck by their fighters. And hopefully, there's talk now, obviously, the Fight Island and the Apex opening or something like that. So fingers crossed we can see where we are with that in a couple of weeks,
Yeah, so if Fight Island does go ahead in a few weeks, or I know there's talk about Florida having events coming on now, would you like to like them to live up to kind of the fact that you were meant to be on the card already now?
I mean, I would obviously I want to fight as often as I can, but the situation I'm in at the minute, and it's the same as any of the guys in Wales and the UK, is that obviously all the gyms are shut. We can't do any real sort of proper training for an MMA fight. You can run and you can get fit and you can get in shape, but there's a difference between being fit and fighting fit. So it is a tough one in the sense of I would love to fight and whatever, but I wouldn't put myself in for a fight if I know I wasn't, physically and mentally prepared for the fight. If in sort of 3-4 weeks' time the gyms are back open, but we're not allowed the sporting events, the gatherings, and they say, do you want to come to the Fight Island and fight in 4 weeks? And that won't be an issue. Don't get me wrong, but at the minute it's going to be tough for me to be ready to fight in sort of 3-4 weeks' time without having a gym to train at. You know what I mean? But I think, we just got to play it by ear at the minute. Obviously, I don't know what's going to happen with the UK government in the sense of when the gym's going to be open. I mean, they haven't confirmed the location yet for the Fight Island. And obviously, they're not letting anyone travel, I don't think, in the UK unless it's essential travel, in and out flight-wise. So I don't know whether we would qualify as essential travel, for a fight or whatever. So, I mean, I'll play it by ear, see what the options are, see what they come with. I know the UFC have said, if people they don't want people to feel pressure to fight. if they don't feel ready, they don't feel comfortable, then they haven't got to. So it's good that they're not trying to put pressure on people to fight. But it's one of them ones. I'm itching to get back in there. This is the longest. I don't think this is the longest I'm fought for since I was an amateur. Since I was about 17, I think. So I'm clucking to get back in there, but at the same time, you can't afford to jump in there unprepared in the UFC. It's a cutthroat business. 1 or 2 losses, you could be gone from there. So I want to make sure if I'm going to go in there, I give myself a fighting chance of being 100% ready as well.
Okay, so then once this all blows over, what is next for you? What would be your ideal matchup?
In an ideal world, I would love to obviously get a rematch with Geraldo, who I was due to fight on London. I think stylistically that would have been one of the most anticipated fights on that card. I think it would have been a good fight style wise. So it would be nice to honour that fight and get that one rebooked. Logistically, I don't know what the crack is with him being from Brazil in the sense of whether they can travel to fight or whatever. But in an ideal world, it'd be nice to get that one rebooked. Get out of the way and then hopefully get a quick turnaround. Once everything's back to normal. But again, we just have to see what they come to us with in the coming weeks.
Yeah. So something that I've seen discussed kind of back and forth, and when I went down to meet the Cage Warriors team, it was actually when you had just signed for the UFC. And I posed a question to them that, do you think down the line you might have a matchup with Wood? And I think it was Ian Dean who said, well, it seems to make sense. Is that something you would be interested in?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm interested in any fight in the division that's going to push me towards the top. Nathaniel's a very good fighter. Obviously lost his last fight to Dodson. But I mean, he was on a bit of a tear before that. So, well, I say a tear. He had 3 wins in there. I know he wasn't against no big names, but he had 3 wins in there. So obviously that fight is going to make sense. Whether it happens sooner or later, I don't know. That's on the UFC and the matchmakers. But if that's a fight they come to me with, then that's a fight I'm happy with, and that's not just the fan. That's anyone in the division. I've never ever. You look at my Cage Warriors resume. I've never ever picked and chose fights. I was 4-0 fighting guys with 15 fights. Right the way up to fighting unbeaten guys, to fighting judo Olympians, to fighting, this, that, and the other, straight into UFC, fighting a guy from AKA. So whoever they come to me with, I'm game to fight anyone. And that's always been my attitude throughout amateur, pro, amateur boxing, anything, right since a kid. I've never picked and chose, because at the end of the day, I've always looked as if you want to be the best in the world, you've got to be ready to fight anyone, and you've got to be, capable of beating anyone. So there's no good pick and choosing, because it'll come back to bite you on the arse at a later date. So if that's a fight they come to me with, then that'll be a great fight for me. But there's a lot of good fights in division as well. You've got people like Sean O'Malley now. Dominic Cruz is back on the scene. Frank Edgar's dropping into bantamweight. Jose Aldo's dropping into bantamweight. Obviously, Montel Jackson who's due to fight Brett. He's another young up-and-comer on the tier. So the division is stacked top to bottom at the minute. So there's a lot of exciting matchups there for everyone. Yeah.
Is there any of the names you've just listed, like O'Malley or anyone like that, who particularly takes your fancy?
Me and O'Malley's obviously be a great fight. I don't think you'll see that happen yet, because I know they're going to put a bit of push behind him, I should imagine, on the American scene. So being 2 prospects, I won't be surprised they keep us apart until they build our names. I did get, when I first signed for UFC, the first name they threw at me for Copenhagen was Brian Kelleher. So he wasn't available or something like that. So that obviously didn't come off. I ended up fighting Hernandez, but that would be a fun fight as well. He had a good last win, and he's fought some good names. He's fought Barao, John Lineker. So he's been in there with some real tough guys. So it'd be great to, that would be a real fun fight as well. You only got to watch him to see he's a great fighter, and he's always in fun fights, and that's the type of thing I want to be interested in. It takes you a lot longer than to get recognised. If you're in sort of boring, lackluster fights in the UFC, I think the more exciting fights you're in, despite where you could be in a fight, 2 of you may not be that well known, but you're in a good fight, and it bumps and boosts your name out there more. So that's the type of fight I'm interested in.
Yeah, it makes total sense. As you were just saying about prospects, kind of not the UFC not matching up prospects, that also makes sense. And I think the UK MMA scene at the moment has a few prospects within it, a few people who are undefeated like yourself, and just people who are generally dominating the game. With having said that, a lot of them have come from Cage Warriors. So obviously recently on Eurobash, Graham said that he doesn't think the UFC will sign anyone now from Cage Warriors for quite a while. what did you think about that being kind of one of the latest fighters to have come?
Yeah, I think I didn't really, it didn't cross my mind to start, but then when I heard what he said, Graham, it does make sense. Just in the obviously there's going to be a backlog, so if say then they get a location locked down in Florida or whatever or the fight island. Say for example, there's only the American guys can fight on that card. You're gonna have a load of Brazilians and Europeans. Then we're gonna have sort of 6-month period or whatever where like I say, we're not really we're not really in full contact training. So at the end of that period, we're all gonna be fit. We're all gonna be raring to go. Like Graham said, there will be a big backlog of guys who's already signed that need to get matched. So perhaps they won't look at signing anyone then for a couple of months. But again, it all depends on how quick it gets turned around in the sense of where they start banging cards out every week, like they say they're going to. If they do that, then perhaps it won't be as much of a backlog as we originally thought. On the flip side, I suppose is obviously if Cage Warriors can't get a show going in the UK for a couple of months because of the what's it called, they can't mass gather and whatever, then UFC are not going to see none of the guys who are on the brink then of signing. UFC are not going to see them pushing on a little bit, so they might hold off in the sense of they want to see one more fight or 2 more fights or whatever. So fingers crossed it doesn't happen like that. It's always good to see the Cage Warriors boys going to UFC. Yeah. Fingers crossed the production line keeps going like usual, but who knows? It's a mad old time run at the minute.
Definitely. Is there any particular names in the Cage Warriors scene at the moment that you think are going to be pushing up soon, or maybe the next signatures?
Yeah, there's definitely a few close. Mason Jones obviously looked really good in his last fight, another Welshman. So the more Welshmen in UFC, the better chance we got of dragging him down here into the valleys for a show. Mason's not. I think Mason's probably one fight away, one defense, maybe 2, obviously, if there's a backlog or whatever, but he's not far away. Reece McKee as well, especially with that if the Dublin card goes ahead without lingering, if Reece McKee ends up winning the title I know he was scheduled to fight for, I don't think he'll be far away. And then, you look at the prospects coming through then, guys who are sort of maybe not knocking on the door, but people like Paul Uzi and Gary Oban Elliott, who I train with, all guys who potentially sort of 3-4 fights away from being knocking on the door themselves. So there's a lot of big names coming through Cage Warriors at the minute. I watch every Cage Warriors show, so I'm aware of them, but perhaps some people are not so familiar with them if they don't keep up to date with the shows. But I think if they don't know now, they'll know in sort of a year's time. They'll be knocking on the door ready to go them free as well.
Yeah, and I can't wait for it either. You just mentioned a minute ago that obviously, hopefully in the future they'll get a UFC card down over in Wales. How far away do you think that is?
I don't think it's not a million miles away. I think the only issue is obviously the venue at the minute. Like the ice arena and the Motor Point are obviously too small, and I think obviously the Principality, unless you're going to put McGregor in there, that's probably too big. So we need something in the middle at the minute. I heard. It's a shame like the Cardiff City and the Swansea City stadiums haven't got roofs on them. I think if they had a roof on them too, it'd be perfect. But we're unfortunately, I heard they're looking at building an indoor arena in Cardiff Bay, 15 or 20,000. But again, how long that takes, you don't know. It can take 2 years, sometimes it can take 5 years. So it's all dependent on the venue at the minute, I think, unless, one of us ends up becoming a mega star and can pull it into the Principality or they can get McGregor down here for whatever reason. Then we're a couple of years away yet, I think, just because of the logistics of it all with the venue. I don't think it's based on talent or Wales having enough pull with the fans, because the Welsh fans are mental and there's always atmosphere is always through the roof. But it's just the venue, I think, that's holding us off a minute.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely enough names in Welsh MMA and even just UK MMA that you could bring to the card. But I think this is what Mason was saying, is that he feels that there's going to need to be a champion first to kind of put on that main event there. I think there is a possibility of getting some of the stars from Team Calbon, even Till. He could headline an event there. But obviously, as you said, it's still probably looking a few years away. But hopefully, that's something that can be done down the line.
Maybe sort of like say Till puts himself in a position now for a title shot. Yeah. Till and Stylebender then in that would sell the Principality out, I'm sure, because everyone from the UK would come. But absolutely. I mean, I don't know how the UFC would look at that in the sense of obviously Till being a Liverpool boy.
Yeah.
Would they want to come all the way down to Wales when they've sort of got Anfield and whatever up that way that they could use? I suppose it's on them. I think Mason, when he says that they need to be a champion, he's probably not far away. If we want it in the Principality, if they build the 20,000 seat, then we might be able to pull it in sooner. But if we want to fill the stadium, then we also need a champion, and we need to have the champion fight against a big name. Then another big name that can pull a big crowd in.
For sure. So before we move on to our fan questions, I just want to ask, who was your idol growing up? And I know your dad obviously trained yourself and has been a big part of your career, but was there any particular fighters or anything that you ever mimicked their styles, or in general kind of watched and thought that they were your idols?
Style-wise, I was always massive fan of GSP and Frankie Edgar. Especially going back a couple of years, I always sort of viewed them two guys as they could do it all. They could strike, they could wrestle, they could grapple. So I've always tried to mimic GSP in a sense of I never want to have a weak area. So I didn't ever want to get matched up with someone and they look at my grappling or my striking or my wrestling and say, right, that's where he's weak, so we need to take it to a day. I always want them to think, right, wherever this fight's going to go, it's going to be tough and competitive. So I've always massive fan, and I looked up to them to his fighters. The way they act as well, very humble, like myself. Not cocky, arrogant, trash talkers. That's not my style, and then whether that's because I was such a big fan of them growing up, maybe. On the contrary, then I was obviously a big fanboy of Nate Diaz as well, just because it's just love his. I just love the attitude he's got in the sense of there's no bullshit, there's no act, he's not putting on a front, he's not trying to be something he's not to draw attention or fans. He's not one of them guys who's got a boring personality and is trying to act up to pull him in. That's who he is. He's a bit of a street thug, but he doesn't pretend to be anything other than that. So I was always a big fan of the Diaz brothers as well, and obviously my teammates like Jack Marshman, Chris Edwards. All of them. As a kid in the gym with guys like them would just turn pro and were fighting on like Bama and Cage Warriors. They were people I looked up to as well and tried to follow in their footsteps.
Yeah, great selection there. And as I said, how can you not love the Diaz brothers? They are.
Yeah, you can't.
Now. So we'll move on to some of our fan questions then. So the first one I had in was from Jacob Shorley. So I just wanted to thank Jacob as well, because I know you messaged yourself about setting this up. So it's awesome that he's in contact with yourself, and hopefully that's something that kind of can continue. And I do appreciate him setting this up. So his question to you was, do you think the UFC will ever come to Wales?
Again, yeah, I do think whether it's in my time as I'd love to help bring it to Wales. So hopefully it's in my before I knock it on the head. Hopefully I can help bring it to Wales and headline the card, or if I don't headline the card, just be part of the reason why they come to Wales, So I think they'll definitely come to Wales, but like we mentioned, it's a lot more to it, I think, than just having the talent pool. There's no denying that we got the talent pool. It's just the other stuff we got to get past, the other hurdles before they make the decision.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. There's of course there is talent, but there is the logistics to it as well. So this one's coming in from Kalen White on Facebook. So what do you think of Jack Cartwright?
Jack Cartwright, really good fighter. Really impressed me at the Unplugged event. Coming underdog. Not underdog, with a bit of a dark horse then. I suppose he didn't have as big as a name of some of the other guys who had all fought for Cage Warriors belt, and just smashed out the park. Really powerful striker, carries concrete in his hands, and he's a good elite level wrestler as well. So I'm sure it won't be long before he's not on the UFC either.
Yeah, but I totally agree. I think for people who haven't seen the Unplugged event, they should go back through and watch that, because it's quite shocking what he does on that card. So this one's coming in from Robbie Thomas on Facebook. Where do you see yourself a year from now?
A year from now, so let's imagine in a month's time the virus is gone and we're all back to normal. I'd like to think a year from now I've possibly had 3, maybe 4 fights, and I'm hopefully knocking on the door of a top 15 spot. If not ranked, hopefully the next one will be against someone who can put me with a number next to my name. That's the plan. Well, that was the plan. Obviously, after this fight was to get 3 fights in this year, 1 early next year, and then obviously start pushing my way up the ladder. But again, think that in an ideal world where everything goes back to normal, that's where I see myself in a year.
Definitely. So our final question for that is from Jacob again, and his question is: Was last year the first offer you had from the UFC, or was there another time when you got the call?
Yeah, no, it wasn't. It wasn't the first offer. I've knocked the UFC back. I think we knocked them back twice or three times. But there's more to it rather than just like, I just knocked them back. The first time they wanted to sign me was when Marshman signed. And I was only 3-0. Now obviously being 3-0 and 21 and fighting for pennies in my head, yeah, let's do it 100%. But this is why I've got people like my father and Carl and my coaches and obviously Graham around me, because they've helped guide me from a young age. So they said, look, too much too soon.
Yeah.
They've always said, we want to go in there and make a statement. We don't want to just go in there to make the numbers up. And then I got offered then. I fought Volney in, when was it, March 2018, and I broke my hand in the fight. It was only a minor fracture, but it was one of them I couldn't train for. I was told 8 to 10 weeks no contact, just because it was such a small fracture. What was happening? I didn't have no pain in the hand, and every time I was using it, every now and then I'd have the pain come back. They say you just keep refracturing a little bit of bone. So we had the call typically for a short notice fight when my hand was broke. So I couldn't spar, couldn't train. A little bit out of shape from not being able to train as much as possible. So I couldn't take that one. And then they spoke to Graham at UFC London last year, actually, and Sean Shelby asked about me then. I was due to fight Malone. So Graham said, let's just get his fight out of the way with Malone and go from there. But to be honest, after I beat Malone, I think I sort of cleared out the division at the time in Cage Warrior. I took out all the big names. There was no one really left. There was no one left to fight that would boost me at all. The only thing I would be doing by fighting other people is boosting their name. So it made sense for me to sign then, and they came to offer then. So it would have been fourth time, I suppose, if you want to include the time Sean Shelby asked in London. But this was the first official offer. I had the contract through and everything like that.
That's crazy though. But I'm glad, obviously, now this is what it's come to, and I'm glad you're obviously part of it. And it seems like they were the best decisions, because you're here where you are today. So if you're happy to, we'll move on to our quiz now.
Yeah, let's have a crack.
Yeah, so it's a 90-second quiz. I'll set a timer. All my answers are ones that are verified by Google. So if there's a slight little, maybe a bit of controversy there, it's from Google, it's not me. So I'll set a 90-second timer if you're happy with it, and then we'll start going from there. So,
what's the quiz on? Is there a topic, or is it just general knowledge?
It's general MMA knowledge.
Right.
So some of the questions are fairly easy. Some of the questions you might struggle a bit with.
Right.
I think so. So Mason, out of 11 questions, he got 5 correct. So you need to beat that, okay? Right. So we're going to start the timer in 3, 2, 1. 9 seconds. So, who was your first professional fight against?
Tyler Thomas.
That's correct. Number 2, who holds the most amount of fight time in the UFC?
Oh, I know this one. I'm going to go Frankie Edgar, but I think I'm wrong.
It's Frankie Edgar, that's correct. Number 3, who was the last and 96th fighter to sign with the UFC?
From Cage Warriors?
Yep.
Jai Herbert.
That's correct. Number 4, who was due to headline UFC London this year?
Leon Edwards and Tyron Woodley.
That's correct. Number 5, who holds the record for the fastest knockout in UFC history?
Oh, I can't think. Pass.
It's Jorge Masvidal against Ben Askren.
Of course it is.
So number 6, at what event did that fight take place?
UFC 240?
No, 239, one off. Number 7, whose nickname was Uncle Creepy?
Ian McCall.
That's correct. Name the 3 individuals to beat Demetrius Johnson.
Brad Pickett, Dominic Cruz, and Henry Cejudo.
That's correct, well done. Chatri Sityodtong owns which major MMA promotion?
ONE FC.
That's correct. This combat sport of Lethwei originates from which country?
Thailand?
No, Burma. It's Burmese boxing. Number 11, who is the current Bellator women's featherweight champion?
Heavyweight. Oh, what's her name? Valentina something, isn't it?
No, the Bellator.
Oh, the Bellator. Pass.
Chris Cyborg.
Cool. Oh, featherweight. I thought you said flyweight.
No, featherweight. But I think that's up there. That was 11 questions. My timer didn't go off, but I think it was roughly the same time there. But I think if we go through that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You got 8, so you're definitely in the leaderboards now, mate.
That's not bad.
Yeah, you do really well there, man. So as I said,
Okay.
you will be at the top of the leaderboards for our quiz until whoever overtakes you.
So I done Mason then, did I?
Yeah, you done Mason in there, but we got Nate Wood on tomorrow, I think. So we'll see what he can do for it.
Yeah, I'm happy with 8. I think I'll sit nice at the top here for a while.
Yeah, 8 out of 11, I think.
I'm just not happy with the cyborg one. I thought you said flyweight, and that would have been 9.
Well, if I said flyweight, I'd double check it and then I'll give you the mark if not. But obviously, thank you so much for doing the call, mate. Is there anything you wanted to put out there for your fans or for sponsors at all?
Yeah, just obviously shout out to I know we're not at the gym at the minute, but shout out to all the boys at the SMMA, all my coaches, my old man Carl, Gary, Heem, Greg, Carlo. Shout out to all my sponsors as well, the ones who supported last fight, who support me long term. Big Jack and Batch as well, who's with me year round. I won't name every one of them because I'll forget someone, but they're all over my social media, so check them out, give them a follow, and catch me online, Jack Show MMA.
Perfect, Jack. I appreciate it a lot, mate, and I'll let you know when anything goes online.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, man. You take care.